Natalie Kane's alarm chirped at 500 hours, a habit she maintained even 3 years after honorable discharge. Her modest apartment near Fort Mason held few decorations save for a shadow box displaying her service medals and a framed photograph of her former squad. Running her fingers along the jagged scar crossing her left cheek, she studied her reflection. Today marked a new chapter, her first day at the prestigious National Sniper Training Program. 8 years of distinguished military service had earned her this rare opportunity, a chance to join the ranks of elite sharpshooters and eventually become an instructor. The specialized training would restore purpose to her civilian life, which had felt hollow since recovery from the roadside bombing that ended her active duty career. As she arrived at the sun-baked training facility, Natalie felt optimistic. The sprawling desert range stretched to the horizon, dotted with target stations at varying distances. 20 men in tactical gear clustered near the main building, their conversations halting as she approached. A tall, broad-shouldered figure detached from the group. "You lost, ma'am." The man's voice carried artificial politeness. His name tape read Anders. Specialist Natalie Kane, reporting for the NSTP. Anders' eyebrows rose. "You're Kane? There must be some mistake." Master Sergeant Pierce emerged from the building, clipboard in hand. His weathered face revealed nothing as he surveyed the recruits. "Fall in," he barked. Anders positioned himself at Pierce's side. "Sir, I believe there's been an administrative error regarding the female candidate." Pierce glanced at his clipboard. Kane, 8 years active duty, distinguished service in Afghanistan and Syria, expert marksman qualification. "With respect, sir," Anders continued, "this program has certain physical demands. The injury report in her file alone." "Are you the program administrator now, Anders?" Pierce cut him off. "Last I checked, you were here to assist instruction, not determine eligibility." Anders' jaw tightened. "Yes, sir." Pierce addressed the group. "The National Sniper Training Program accepts only the top 1% of qualified marksmen. Your previous accomplishments mean nothing here. You'll be evaluated solely on performance." His gaze lingered on Natalie. No exceptions, no special accommodation. As they moved toward the firing line, Natalie caught Anders whispering to several recruits. Their laughter and sidelong glances made his message clear. He didn't believe she belonged, and he intended to prove it. The morning began with equipment inspection. Natalie unpacked her rifle case, revealing a weathered but meticulously maintained M45. Unlike the others who sported newer models with cutting-edge accessories, her weapon bore the marks of actual combat. That museum piece still fire. Anders smirked, now wearing an assistant instructor's badge. Several recruits chuckled. Pierce approached, examining each candidate's setup. When he reached Natalie, Anders hovered nearby. "Sir, Regulation 4.7 states all candidates must utilize standard-issue equipment meeting current specifications," Anders said. "That rifle is at least 2 generations outdated." Pierce inspected Natalie's weapon. Regulation 4.7 applies to new recruits, not specialized training programs. Candidates may use personally qualified weapons if they meet accuracy standards. He moved on without further comment. Anders' face flushed. The first qualification round began. 3 shots at 300 yards to establish baseline accuracy. Natalie took her position on the firing line, focusing on her breathing as she had countless times in combat zones. When her turn came, Anders stood directly behind her. "Remember," he announced loudly, "proper form is essential. Women typically struggle with recoil management due to upper body strength limitations." She ignored the comment, steadied her aim, and fired 3 precise shots. The range officer called through his binoculars, "Kane, grouping just under 1 inch." A murmur ran through the recruits. Even at this professional level, sub-MOA accuracy was impressive. Anders inspected the target himself. Beginner's luck. Let's see consistency throughout the day. For the next exercise, Anders assigned partners, deliberately placing Natalie with Sanders, a nervous recruit who had shown the poorest performance. "You two should be well matched," he announced with a thin smile. The partner drill required spotting for each other during wind adjustment exercises. Sanders missed crucial wind shifts, causing Natalie to waste several shots. When scores were tallied, her perfect first round was undermined by the subsequent performance. "Consistency issues already," Anders noted loudly while recording results. "This program requires dependable performance under all conditions." Natalie maintained her composure even as she recognized the deliberate sabotage. She approached Sanders afterward. "Tomorrow, let's communicate more clearly about wind calls." The young man glanced nervously toward Anders before responding. "Actually, I've requested a different partner." By the third day, Anders' tactics grew more obvious. Morning assignments posted on the bulletin board consistently placed Natalie at disadvantaged positions, firing lines with uneven ground, time slots with the most challenging wind conditions, and equipment checks scheduled to conflict with her preparation time. During the long-range exercise, she arrived to find her assigned spotter absent. "Robinson's ill," Anders informed her with false concern. "You'll have to calculate your own adjustments. Unless that's too difficult." Natalie completed the exercise alone, performing admirably despite the handicap. Afterward, she discovered Robinson lounging in the mess hall, perfectly healthy. "Anders told me you requested to work independently," he explained, confused by her question. That evening, Natalie found Barrett, a stoic former police sniper, cleaning his rifle outside the barracks. "Is it just me, or is Anders creating obstacles for certain people?" she asked carefully. Barrett's hands never paused their methodical movement. "Anders has been running off candidates for 3 sessions. Usually minorities or anyone he considers non-traditional." He finally looked up. "You're just the most obvious target he's found. Has anyone reported him? To whom?" "Pierce follows regulations, but he's old-school military. Believes in letting recruits fight their own battles." The next morning, Anders introduced a new exercise. "Combat stress simulation," he announced. "Each candidate will complete the qualification course, while instructors create distractions." When Natalie's turn came, Anders stood uncomfortably close, deliberately bumping her shooting mat. "In real combat, enemies won't politely wait for you to take perfect aim," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Other distractions followed. Sudden noises, bright lights, even sand kicked toward her position. Despite everything, she maintained respectable scores. Anders scowled at the results. That night, someone had rummaged through her equipment. Nothing was missing, but her scope 0 had been adjusted. Only years of ingrained habits, checking equipment before every use, prevented a disastrous performance the next day. More recruits began keeping their distance, fearing association with her would make them targets too. Only Barrett maintained minimal friendly contact, offering occasional advice in brief, private moments. "He's building a case against you," Barrett warned during breakfast, documenting every minor mistake. "If you call them out directly, it'll look like you're making excuses." The isolation strategy was working. Natalie felt increasingly alone, her confidence eroding under the constant scrutiny and sabotage. The 4th week brought the stealth field exercise, a crucial test where candidates had to navigate undetected across open terrain, acquire targets, and extract without discovery. Success required perfect concealment techniques and patience. At the morning briefing, Anders outlined the parameters. "You'll be evaluated on time, accuracy, and detection avoidance. 3 strikes on any element means failure." His eyes lingered on Natalie. "Some candidates may find the physical demands challenging." When gear was distributed, Natalie discovered her ghillie suit was significantly heavier than the others, with poorly attached camouflage elements that rustled with each movement. A deliberate sabotage, but impossible to prove. Halfway through her approach, pain flared along her left side where shrapnel had once torn through muscle and bone. The extra weight exacerbated her old injury. Each movement became agony as she inched toward the firing position. Despite the pain, she reached her designated spot undetected and executed a perfect shot. During extraction, her compromised mobility slowed her pace. A spotter on the ridge called out, "Movement in Sector 4." Her position revealed, the exercise ended in failure. Anders didn't bother hiding his satisfaction. Kane returned to base. Physical limitations are nothing to be ashamed of, but this program requires peak performance. That evening, Natalie sat alone outside her quarters, massaging her throbbing side. The pain paled compared to the humiliation. An official notation of failure in stealth operations, once her specialty, now marred her record. Pierce approached unexpectedly. "Medical reported you refused evaluation." "It's an old injury, sir. Nothing new." "That wasn't a question, specialist. Report to medical at 600. After he left, Natalie's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Check your email." The anonymous message contained a forwarded email from Anders to program administrators. Recommendation for immediate dismissal of candidate Kane. Physical limitations and consistent underperformance present liability concerns. Attached was a performance log documenting her failures. All situations Anders had engineered. The email was dated tomorrow. He planned to submit it after one more manufactured failure. Natalie stared at the screen, a cold realization settling over her. Playing by the rules in a rigged game guaranteed defeat. Fighting back directly would look like insubordination. She needed a different approach, one that would expose Anders, while demonstrating her undeniable competence. Before dawn, Natalie visited the medical officer. Rather than minimizing her injury as usual, she requested a complete evaluation and documentation. Shrapnel damage to the latissimus dorsi and quadratus lumborum, the doctor noted. Functional but subject to strain under sustained awkward positioning. Recommendation: standard load distribution, avoid prolonged static postures exceeding 45 minutes. "I'd like that in writing, please," Natalie requested. "For my personal records." Her next stop was the range master's office. The grizzled veteran who maintained all equipment records barely looked up when she entered. "Need to verify calibration on my personal weapon," she stated, "and request historical verification of equipment assignments." His eyebrows rose slightly, but he produced the logbooks without question. 15 minutes of searching revealed the pattern. Every substandard piece of equipment had been specifically allocated to her by Anders, despite alternatives being available. "Mind if I take photos of these records?" Personal development tracking. The range master shrugged. Public documents. Armed with evidence, Natalie approached Barrett that afternoon. "I need your help." Barrett listened silently to her plan, then nodded once. About time someone challenged him. Others have tried reporting him through official channels. Those complaints mysteriously disappeared. "I'm not filing a complaint," Natalie clarified. "I'm creating an opportunity." That evening, she visited Pierce's office, requesting a specific accommodation for the upcoming blindfold shooting test, the program's most notorious challenge. "I'd like to attempt the full 10-shot sequence," she stated. Pierce's expression remained neutral. Standard qualification requires 5 hits out of 10. Most candidates manage 3 or 4. "I understand, sir. This is a personal challenge." "Suit yourself, specialist." He made a notation in his records. "Though I recommend focusing on meeting standards before attempting to exceed them." After leaving his office, Natalie dedicated every free moment to preparation. While others slept, she practiced dry firing with closed eyes, developing perfect muscle memory for trigger pressure. She studied wind patterns at different times of day, mapping how they shifted across the range. Barrett discreetly helped by timing her practices and offering occasional suggestions. Other recruits, noticing her late-night dedication, began watching with curiosity rather than derision. Anders noticed too, his smug confidence gradually shifting to unease as he observed her methodical preparation. The day of the blindfold test arrived. A challenge that had humbled even the most experienced marksman. Candidates would fire 10 shots without sight, guided only by a spotter's initial positioning and their own sense of muscle memory and spatial awareness. Anders arranged the firing order, placing Natalie last, ensuring maximum pressure and fatigue. As the morning progressed, most candidates achieved the minimum 5 hits, with the highest score being 7 from Barrett. Anders himself demonstrated the exercise, achieving 6 hits and receiving approving nods from the instructional staff. He made a show of removing his blindfold, bowing slightly to the polite applause. "Remember," he announced loudly as Natalie took her position, "this exercise reveals the difference between luck and skill. Consistent accuracy under disadvantaged conditions is what separates professionals from amateurs." Natalie settled into position, performing her pre-shot routine with deliberate precision. She adjusted her stance slightly to accommodate her left side, using the positioning techniques she'd practiced during sleepless nights. "Ready for blindfold," she announced. Anders himself stepped forward to secure the covering, slightly tighter than necessary. "Remember, minimum qualification is 5 hits. Don't be discouraged when, not if, you fall short." The range fell silent. Following her spotter's final positioning confirmation, Natalie began her sequence. The first shot broke cleanly. A distant metallic ring confirmed the hit. Then the second. And third. By the 5th successful hit, murmurs spread through the observers. She had qualified, matching the minimum requirement. But she continued. 6, 7, 8. Anders shifted uncomfortably as each successive hit registered. Natalie maintained perfect form, her breathing controlled, each movement identical to the last. 9. The tension on the range was palpable. No one had ever scored 9 blindfolded shots in the program's history. For the final shot, Natalie adjusted minutely for the thermal drift she'd calculated would affect the range at this time of day, a factor most shooters ignored. She squeezed the trigger. 10. Perfect score. Unprecedented. As she removed her blindfold, the range erupted in spontaneous applause. Pierce stepped forward, inspection card in hand, his stoic expression betrayed by raised eyebrows. 10 for 10, he announced officially. Program record. Anders stood frozen, his carefully constructed narrative of her incompetence shattered by irrefutable evidence of exceptional skill. The following morning, Pierce called an unexpected assembly. The entire cadre gathered in the main briefing room, an unusual deviation from the training schedule. Yesterday's blindfold exercise produced extraordinary results, Pierce began. In light of Specialist Kane's unprecedented performance, program administrators have requested a formal demonstration for visiting command staff this afternoon. Anders stepped forward. "Sir, with respect, while impressive, yesterday's results may represent an anomaly. Perhaps we should select a more consistent performer for the demonstration." Pierce's expression hardened. "Are you suggesting the exercise was somehow compromised, assistant instructor?" "Not at all, sir," Anders backtold. "Simply that high-pressure demonstrations require predictable outcomes." Interesting perspective. Pierce turned to Natalie. "Specialist Kane, would you be willing to repeat yesterday's performance? Same parameters, same distance, same equipment." "Yes, sir," she answered without hesitation. The demonstration was scheduled for 1400 hours. As candidates prepared their daily equipment, Natalie received unexpected support. Barrett quietly advised on wind conditions. Even Sanders approached with an awkward apology for his earlier behavior. Anders, meanwhile, huddled with his remaining allies, their conversation stopping whenever she passed nearby. By afternoon, the range had transformed. Visiting officers lined the observation area. A camera crew set up to record the demonstration. Pierce introduced each segment of the event, highlighting the progressive difficulty of the exercises. When the blindfold portion arrived, Anders made one final attempt to intervene. Colonel Davis, he addressed the ranking visitor. While impressive, the blindfolded exercise isn't representative of actual field requirements. Perhaps we should focus on more practical applications. The colonel raised an eyebrow. On the contrary, assistant instructor. Muscle memory and positional awareness are crucial for nighttime operations. I'm particularly interested in this segment. Nately took her position. The same routine, the same focus. This time, with dozens more observers and the weight of verification on her shoulders. 10 shots, 10 hits, perfection again. The applause was immediate and enthusiastic. Colonel Davis approached as she removed her blindfold. Extraordinary demonstration, specialist. Where did you develop such precision? Afghanistan, sir. 36th Forward Reconnaissance. When night vision failed during sandstorms, we adapted. The colonel nodded appreciatively, then turned to Pierce. I believe we've identified your next instructor candidate. Anders stood apart, his face ashen as his carefully constructed realm of influence visibly crumbled around him. 3 days after the demonstration, administrative changes swept through the program. Anders was reassigned to a logistical support role at headquarters, a lateral move that everyone recognized as a demotion. Pierce called Natalie to his office, where she found Colonel Davis waiting. Your performance has attracted attention, specialist, the colonel began. Not just the shooting, your entire approach. We've reviewed your file more thoroughly, including some inconsistencies in performance documentation. He placed a folder on the desk, her complete record, including the manipulated evaluations Anders had created. Interesting how your performance fluctuated precisely when certain equipment was assigned or when specific personnel monitored your exercises, Pierce added. Equipment with documented maintenance issues, coincidentally. We don't tolerate institutional sabotage, Colonel Davis continued. Several candidates from previous cycles have now come forward with similar experiences. A pattern has emerged. Natalie maintained her composure. I'm just focused on completing the program successfully, sir. You've done more than that, the colonel replied. You've exposed a serious issue in our selection process. The blindfold exercise was originally implemented as a humbling experience, to teach candidates about limitations. You've transformed it into a demonstration of possibility. The program's final weeks proceeded without further incident. Anders' allies kept their distance, now careful not to be associated with his tactics. Several apologized awkwardly for their earlier behavior. At graduation, Natalie received dual recognition, completion with distinguished marks, and a special commendation for setting the program record. Pierce, presenting the honors, actually smiled. The true measure of excellence, he announced to the assembled graduates, is performance under deliberate disadvantage. Remember that when you face obstacles in the field. As candidates dispersed to their assignments, Barrett approached her one last time. You know what happened to the last 3 female candidates Anders drove out? They're all thriving in specialized roles now. Living well is the best revenge. 6 months later, Natalie returned to the training facility, not as a candidate, but as the new advanced techniques instructor. Her first initiative, implementing standardized equipment protocols and blind performance evaluations to eliminate bias. Her first class included 2 female veterans and 3 minority candidates, the highest diversity in program history. On her office wall hung a simple framed certificate commemorating her blindfolded shooting record. Below it, she added a small personal note: vision is overrated. Perfect perception comes from within. The plaque served as both personal vindication and warning. Underestimate others at your peril. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.